Hello everyone, thanks for being here for the DPN and RWA panel. So I will start with the introduction of myself. So I am Ashish from Netsepio. So we are building a DPN infrastructure for creating a virtual private network in any ecosystem. And I will ask the panelists to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? My name is Anastasia. I'm based in Hong Kong. We're a global company called Defactor. We are a tools and infrastructure provider for RWA platforms. We help them tokenize assets from various asset classes, launch lending pools based on those tokenized assets, and also launch staking and governance if they have their own utility governance tokens for their own ecosystem. So we're a tech partner to all of the RWA projects that are building out there.
Hey guys, whoa, sorry, a little loud. My name is Jason Brink. I am the CEO of Datagram, and we are a DPIN protocol that we just soft launched last night, so you probably haven't heard of us yet, but we're getting ready to redefine how decentralized infrastructure works. And we have a live product already with several million users that are using Web3 infra and have no idea. It is the holy grail of onboarding. So I look very much forward to sharing more of that with you guys and to joining this panel. Thank you guys so much.
Hey, hi everyone. My name is Ashish. I'm one of the co-founder of BitDoctor.ai. We built the most advanced AI doctor in the Web3 space that can preliminarily diagnose heart attack, stroke, diabetic, hypertension, fatty liver disease with a simple scan with just your mobile phone on your face. We read hemoglobin and melanin flow on your face with just your mobile phone. And our current accuracy rate is sitting at somewhere around 88 to 98%, depends on the lighting condition, camera quality, and we leverage on the DP infrastructure and allow anyone and everyone to use this amazing technology that we have put together so to further cultivate our AI engine. Our application is ready to be used already. We have an actual working product that you can download it either on App Store or iOS. We just got our iOS approved like 2 days ago. Yeah, that's us. Thank you.
Nice. So I will start with Anastasia and wanted to know more about how you are bridging the RWA. So how you would see the regulatory aspect revolving around tokenization of the traditional sectors?
Sorry, how do we?
See the regulatory aspects of tokenizing the traditional assets.
Yeah, the regulator is probably the question that comes up the most when we talk about RWA. So we provide the tech infrastructure for the projects to essentially go from 0 to 1. And the regulatory aspect is usually based off of the framework that they are trying to use based on where their clients are. So essentially, let's say you're tokenizing real estate, then you would need to pick a jurisdiction where you're going to tokenize the assets, have it all verified, and essentially us as a tech provider, we're going to help you with the process of actually minting the tokens that is going to represent the real estate. But distributing that asset to users or to essentially retail investors, or if you're targeting institutional investors, that is solely based on the regulatory framework in that region, which you're targeting with your RWA. So I think from the regulatory point of view, it's really important that the local jurisdictions are being, forward-looking, progressive. Here in Asia, I think we have quite a few locations where there started already being quite a lot of development around tokenization of assets and essentially implementing the KYC and AML around tokenization of assets. I think that's one of the, key steps to making it all safe and sound. I don't know if anybody wants to add anything else to that.
And I've also wanted you, if you can add on this, what is the biggest barrier of entry for you for the mass adoption?
I guess the biggest barrier of entry in terms of onboarding users for our clients that are using our technology to essentially distribute the tokenized assets in their jurisdictions would have been verification of the assets. So I guess a lot of the Web2 users are still sort of questioning whether the real world asset tokenization is something that is real and I'm really going to have some kind of power over my tokenized real estate, as opposed to it's just a token and it doesn't exist. And in a lot of jurisdictions or a lot of countries where there has been a lot of scams or some kind of illegal activities, the trust is still probably the major barrier for the industry. So we're working on that.
Jason, do you want to add on this?
I mean, I think that when you look at regulatory environments and regulatory structures, I don't want to get deeply into regulatory environments for RWAs because that's not my thing, right? But I think that the important thing to remember is that regulators exist specifically to protect consumers. At least that's the way that they see themselves in their own minds. Now, anyone who's in crypto does not feel that way because obviously they, to be completely candid, can I be spicy up here? Can I be spicy?
Yeah, please go on, please.
To be completely candid, they have no idea what the fuck they're doing. And they will often integrate and implement things that are profoundly harmful to to our industry as a whole. But in their mind, they're trying very hard to protect consumers from bad actors. And to be honest, everyone in this space knows people who are bad actors, or at least knows of them because we can't get away from the bastards. They're rugging us all the time. So the regulators are trying to help in the best way that they know how, and it's up to us to educate regulators and to help them understand what it is that we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, and how it's actually better for the consumers than to exist with the status quo as it is.
For Asher, I have a specific question for you. How does the decentralization nature of your platform enhance the trust and transparency in medical data?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
How does your platform decentralize and enhance the transparency for the medical data?
Basically, the medical data, decentralization is important as a Web3 entrepreneur, as a Web3 evangelist myself. Decentralized is important, but also as a health tech entrepreneur that I've been in the medical industry for almost 7 years now. Not everything can be decentralized because the medical industry is still a very, very highly regulated industry. Like what just the previous question, regulation is very important. But to prevent the bad actor from not doing the bad stuff, we need to still comply in a way whereby whatever decentralization method in the healthcare space, we still need to comply with AICPA, PPDA, EU GDPR, as long as all these regulators agree with certain framework that will be created, whereby there's already certain sandbox that is ongoing, then only we can put such data into the decentralized space. Like health data is something very, very crucial, very, very important, and also something very, very valuable as well. So putting it on a decentralized space is good for user, of course, on the rewards point of view. When the data is being used, users are being rewarded. That is the most important segment. But on the storage point of view, at this point, there's no actual proper framework to store medical data on a decentralized manner.
Thanks for the same. So now the next question is for all the panelists. If you can share, like RWA and DPINs are the new field that are shining in the current market phase, and there are lots of risk associated for the retail and the institutional investors. So how each of your project is tackling that?
I think that one of the most important things when you're a person that's looking at a project, right? And this is true not just of DPIN or of RWA or of this basically applies to anything that has actual utility. So we're going to go ahead and leave the frog and dog coins out of this. But the number one thing that you always need to be looking for is the fundamental tokenomics behind things, and then the real world usage of the token that underlies those tokenomics. So if you have a token, for example, that has a, it's an infinite printing machine, that's probably not going to be great long term unless you also pair those sinks or those faucets, if you will, with sinks in parallel, because you have to be able to get tokens out of circulation. And so when you look at how an ecosystem is structured, focusing on those things specifically is one of the biggest differences that you can make, or the biggest differentiating factors that you can find. Most projects will release the most garbage of white papers that don't actually show how these things really work. Before you get into things, get into the nitty-gritty of the tokenomics, get into the nitty-gritty of the ecosystem as a whole, to understand not just what the I guess the bull case is, because people are very they like to, hopium, right? Hopium is a thing. Everyone gets high as hell on hopium and apes into projects. You want to kind of temper that a little bit with some decent research to dig into exactly how things function, to make sure that it's actually a robust and long-term sustainable project.
Yeah, I think I agree with you in terms of doing your own due diligence and actually digging into the project. And I think from Defactor's point of view, we've kind of enabled the technological aspect of that by building a platform when we launched our own token, which is a DAO token essentially. So we have a token called Factor, and it's been live for 3 years. And while we're trying to build more transparency around our own token, we built this platform which we now white label, which is called Engage. It's essentially a platform where you can see all of your staking pools, all of your governance decisions that have been made for Defactor. So as a token holder, you log in by connecting your wallet, MetaMask, something really easy, but then you see the entire sort of tokenomics in one platform. So as a token holder, you would have full transparency of how the project is operating. Defactor is obviously the best example of it because we've built it for ourselves, but now we're providing it to any project that has an ecosystem token or a governance token. And from that point, it's really important to do the due diligence and essentially protect yourself from all those risks that you mentioned by having all the tools that are available out there for you to actually do the research and have some sort of on-chain data, staking, governance, all of those decisions that have been made around the project, and really just go and fully research them. And I guess the other risk mitigating tool is KYC and AML. So essentially when we deploy our tag for tokenization of different asset classes, we're trying to work with really reliable KYC and AML providers, because that's also something that, as you mentioned, the regulators enforced essentially to protect the users. So transaction monitoring, knowing your wallet is clean, and all of those tools, I think they're available out there, and we need to make the full use of them.
Asha, do you want to add something on that?
Yeah, sure. I think every single project, not just in the DePIN or RWA space, is one crucial question is why token, right? I mean, you could have built a project and go to a traditional VC, come up with a very feasible financial model and business model to run the business, which is way easier. I mean, if you want to build a token project, it's actually complicating a lot of processes. But why are we doing this? That's the most important question. In my personal opinion, a project with a proper strong fundamental is all about your token should be a royalty program. It's a way to manage your community, bringing the power back to your community member that holds the token, and through a very transparent method. And also, in the end, Web3 space is all about distributing the rewards. That's what Bitcoin are created in the very first place, decentralizing an industry, whereby it's the same thing. If you are unable to bring the rewards through a very proper network to your user, where your token holders are not being well informed of how it's being done, and is being shared transparently and in a very fair manner, then you should not build a token project to begin with.
Yeah. Thanks for the response. My next question addresses the problem of decentralization versus centralization. There is always an argument going around decentralization always lacks support and the efficiency that the centralized system has proven. So what is your take on that, and how your project addresses the same issue? We can start with Anastasia.
Sure, and it's interesting. So I guess we are I just had that conversation with someone yesterday when they were asking me, so you're tokenizing real estate, but the government still sort of verifies that that real estate exists. There's the deeds, there is the, whatever they're called, the office that registers. So they basically told me, well, if you're tokenizing real estate there, you're kind of still centralized because you ultimately believe in that framework that's provided around the tokenized asset, which is still a Web2 framework, and it's still a centralized system. To what, I guess, like my take on this is that the tools that are enabled, with blockchain and with tokenization, they're decentralized in the sense that, yes, there's the system, but for example, let's keep the example of real estate, right? Like not every country recognizes the tokenized version of the real estate. So what people do when they build projects around real estate tokenization in Thailand, I don't know, Jason, maybe you'll add some examples of that. I think Thailand is just flooded with a lot of bright minds around tokenization of real estate. Villas in Bali, Latin America, those emerging markets, when they build real estate tokenization projects, they actually tokenize either the economical value that's derived from owning that apartment, let's say. So that's basically the rental income. So as a token holder, I'm entitled to receive the rental income from that property, but I'm not necessarily the one that's actually owning the deed that the government is going to recognize. So in that sense, it's a little bit decentralized. Or another version of that real estate tokenization is when there is an SPV, special purpose vehicle, so it's a company that owns, let's say, those 20 properties. And as a token holder of that tokenized asset or real estate portfolio, I'm basically going to be entitled to receive yield based on that portfolio performance. So if that company manages the 20 properties really well, then I'll get my yield. Is it centralized? Not as centralized as buying an apartment with the government recognized deed. So I think that's kind of where the difference is at the moment. I don't know if anybody wants to add.
I actually, this is one of my favorite topics. I could totally go on like a horrid rant about this. One of the biggest challenges, and I know you've run into this 100%, working specifically in the developing world when it comes to RWAs, specifically around real estate, is one of the biggest challenges that prevents the developing world from capitalizing is the fact that in the developing world, property rights are not as enshrined in the same way as they are in, so for example, a lot of the United States and Europe, a land deed means a thing. But if you go to Venezuela or Ecuador or, pretty much anywhere in the developing world, that becomes a much more difficult thing to tokenize because, I think I read a book that said something, there's like 217 steps or something like that to get a land deed registered in Venezuela. And it involves, in order to do that, it would involve like tons and tons of money that you would have to pay under the table just to government officials just to get a land deed at the end of the day that is the thing that's tokenized. So what you end up with is you end up with this amazing extrajudicial structure of property ownership where you end up tokenizing things like rent because that's a thing you can tokenize because there isn't a government contract attached to it because the government contract doesn't exist. And so when we look at this sort of stuff from an RWA perspective, it becomes really interesting because we end up with two separate structures, the developing world and then the developed world, as two separate pieces of the same puzzle. And I think it's just an absolutely fascinating thing. I know that's totally off topic from what we were talking about, but I find it absolutely fascinating, and I applaud you guys for taking it on.
Yeah, and I think the real estate tokenization is probably something that we've always anticipated to be the first asset to be widely spread as a tokenized asset, tokenized RWA, so properties. Everybody likes to talk about them, but the implementation of it is
fucking hard,
is
guys.
Just, yeah.
It's really hard.
Asha, do you want to add on this?
Yeah, sure. Tokenizing real estate is going to have a lot of challenge, but I personally believe that at one point it's going to happen. Just like, for example, what Jason said, the land deed. Just, at one point, for example, the land deed can be just an NFT, and eventually everything will be decentralized. Everything, like people decentralizing is also about cutting out the middleman. When you want to putting real estate into RWA project, we're talking about a lot of factors that need to be done to build on blockchain first. Regulator have to come in. They have to agree, you have to cut out the lawyers, you have to cut out the stamp duty. Everything will be based on NFT. I mean, it can be, depends on what term you want to call it, right? And a transfer of deed can be just an NFT, rental will be paid in crypto. Then everything will basically eventually build on-chain. Then by then, we will actually see a real tokenization of real estate, whereby renter, transfer, every single point of the whole transaction. Because if you want to sell a property, it takes like 6 months right now, to transfer deed. You have to go to a lawyer. The lawyer has to sign an SNP. The SNP then have to send for government to stamp. If this whole process, regulatory framework comes in and agree to build it on chain, we can cut a lot of middlemen away, save a lot of costs. We're talking about tens of thousands of dollars on every single real estate transaction. Stamp duty will be eliminated. Process will be quicker. And I believe this won't happen in the short couple of months or maybe 1-2 years. But there are a lot of government already exploring how to potentially build this on a decentralized manner, because it's also making the government more efficient. It depends on which country. Some countries are not so progressive. If the country is progressive, they are definitely exploring this. There are a couple of countries in Europe that is already exploring on this particular segment.
Thanks, Asher. So each and every bull cycle have a different wave. Before, in previous bull cycle, we have seen the DeFi wave and the NFT wave. Now this bull cycle is seeing the RW and the DePIN wave. And we are seeing lots of different projects who are rebranding themselves as the RWA and DePIN. So what is your insights about how this DePIN and RWA industry will evolve in next to 5 to 10 years? And if you have some alphas regarding how the projects are shaping up, if you can share about this.
I think you forgot to add PayFi. This DePIN, RWA, and PayFi, all the sexy words these days. So I guess like 5 to 10 years is a bit of a short term, I would say, for the RWA adoption. But I guess like where I would like to see it maybe in 12 years, hopefully, it would be that sort of ChatGPT moment where my mom can be using ChatGPT, but she doesn't know about that right now. And right now, ChatGPT is a technology that is integrated in so many different solutions, and people are using it. So, AI is kind of like part of the daily life for many users without them kind of realizing that. And I think RWA is still a bit far from that. So my hope is that, I guess, like coming back to real estate tokenization, we don't just focus on that, but I think that's a great example in general, I guess maybe in addition to gold and precious metals, because that is also another pretty dominating asset that had been tokenized by many projects at the moment. And back to real estate, I guess like when your real estate agent is going to take you to see your apartment or your potential apartment, you purchase it by providing your wallet, sending the USDC, let's say, to the real estate company, and they send you the tokenized version of that real estate back to your wallet. I think that's when, as a consumer, you will have zero barriers. You will just have everything done the way that you would imagine it's done today, but then the technology will be sort of embedded into the process. And you would be an owner of a tokenized real estate without kind of really knowing what it means. So yeah, for me, that's kind of like how I would like to see the industry in about 10 to 12 years, hopefully.
I think that, excuse me, I think that all of that is the trajectory that things are heading on. But I think that another component of this, and to match the DePIN with the RWA, is the question of where does all of this live, right? I mean, if you look at most L2s out there today, most of the L2s that everybody uses, I'm not going to name names because I don't feel like getting in that kind of, debate. Most of those are based on a very, very few servers. that are oftentimes quite centrally hosted. And that's not a thing that generally speaking in the space that we talk about, but it is in fact 100% correct. Not all of them, okay? I'm not, no, they're not all that way, but some of them are. And this is why having data that is resilient and anti-fragile and spread across the largest number of devices possible is really, really important. And this is true not just from like the blockchain validator, node perspective, but also from just where data lives, which is why, I'm really happy with what, some of what we're achieving with Datagram right now, with being able to, basically turn a lot of your different sort of common excess capacity in terms of compute and storage and bandwidth into an operational core that will host data for the world of DeepIn, really. One of the things that when I was previously, before I started with Datagram, I was the president of blockchain at a company called Gala, which a lot of you guys have heard of. And one of the things that we accomplished there, which I was very, very, very proud of, was the fact that today, even today, 85% of all of the DHT routing that goes across all of IPFS depends on Gala founders' nodes. And so everyone who has a Bored Ape or who has a Pudgy Penguin or who has a, pick your favorite NFT project, most of that stuff is pinned to IPFS. And IPFS is massively more performant because you had a company like Gala go stand up 35,000 additional nodes to support IPFS DHT routing. This is something that we're scaling even further because it's absolutely critical. You can't have real estate on chain unless you know that that's secure. These things have to be as spread as widely as possible, because if you have, sort of your garden variety bullshit DeepIn protocol where everything's hosted on AWS East because it's the cheapest, you don't have a DeepIn protocol, you just have a bunch of EC2 instances on AWS, and that's not very resilient. And so the creation of incentivization structures specifically for DeepIn and supporting RWA is really hypercritical in the space.
Ashish, do you want to add?
Yeah. I mean, the current DeepIn narrative that outgoing definitely attracted a lot of players into the space, whereby we are talking about a lot of traditional entrepreneurs coming into the space because of this current DeepIn narrative. But actually, the DeepIn narrative, decentralizing stuff has been ongoing for very, very long, just that it's being labeled and termed differently. But thanks to the word DeepIn right now, it allows, of course, it's also because of a lot of infrastructure, a lot of tools out there, a lot of good L1 and L2 and even L3 that can allow builders to build a project on a decentralized manner very, very easily, that attract all these traditional entrepreneurs to come in to build a DeepIn project. If we're talking about if 5 years ago or 6 years ago, people will have no idea how to build a blockchain project, but thanks to the past couple of years, whereby all the great infrastructure projects that build a lot of tools that allow all these existing traditional large entrepreneur, we are talking about people that build windmill, people that build solar farm. These are multi-billion-dollar company that, but back then it's going to be so difficult for them to actually come in, and it take them years to understand, or they take them very unique talents to join them, which is, it's not easy to work with blockchain people. And back then, the blockchain people are so degen. If they walk into a meeting room with a bunch of corporates going in with their t-shirts and short pants and slipper and maybe didn't even shower for a couple of days.
Hey, these are custom shorts, okay? Don't talk shit.
Yeah. And they won't accept. They would look at us like clowns, right? They were like, what are you even talking about? I'm public listed company and so like that. They come in their suit, their tie, and they won't understand. But thanks to all the infrastructure that is already being built, all the tools that are being built, it allows them to understand the industry better, and they know that it's coming, whereby all the regulatory framework is already existing as well. That's why regulatory framework is actually very, very important in the Web3 space. A lot of people say that, oh, no, we have to go full degen and everything. No, like what just previous speaker say, people need to be protected because every single rising industry, there's always the bad apple. There's always the good guys and the bad guys, right? So the good guys are always here to protect the industry, so that hope for the industry to keep growing. But every single bad players that come into the industry will put the industry in reverse in general and put more fear into the general public. But because of the regulatory framework is in, because of all the infrastructure tools that in, you know, all the supply chain, they can put their whole supply chain into the blockchain space, like project like VET and stuff like that. This allows all these great projects to big company to come into this spin space, and where I see in coming future, the next few years, this is where the real mass adoption is going to happen into the blockchain space.
Thanks. Thanks, Ashish. So that's our time. Thank you, all the panelists, for sharing the insight with the audience. And thank you for being here.
Thank you guys very much.
Thanks. Thank you.